sure can't say that Dallas doesn't love you." And then he said, "That's obvious." And then he got shot. She laughed. "God, that's awful. I shouldn't laugh, but I will." Then she laughed again. "Okay, Mr. Famous Last Words boy, I have one for you." She reached into her overstuffed backpack and pulled out a book. Gabriel Garcia Marquez, The General and His Labyrinth, absolutely one of my favorites. It's about Simón Bolívar. I didn't know who Simón Bolívar was, but she didn't give me time to ask. It's a historical novel, so I don't know if this is true, but in the book, you know what his last words are? And then she lit a cigarette and sucked on it for so hard, for so long, that I thought the entire thing might burn off in one drag. She exhaled and read to me. He, that's Simón Bolívar, was shaken by the overwhelming revelation that the headlong race between his misfortunes and his dreams was at that moment reaching the finish line. The rest was darkness. "Damn it," he sighed. "How will I ever get out of this labyrinth?" I knew great last words when I heard them, and I made a mental note to get a hold of a biography of this Bolivar fellow. Beautiful last words, but I didn't quite understand. "So what's the labyrinth?" I asked her. Her mouth close enough to me that I could feel her breath warmer than the air. She said, "That's the mystery, isn't it? Is the labyrinth living or dying? Which is Bolivar trying to escape, the world or the end of it?" I waited for her to keep talking, but after a while, it became obvious she wanted an answer. "I don't know," I said finally. "Have you really read all those books in your room?" She has a lot of books in her room. That should go without saying, really, that wasn't necessary. She laughed. "No, I've only read maybe a third of them, but I'm gonna read them all. I call it my life's library." I'm gonna skip ahead. Later, I walked toward the dorm circle by Alaska. The cicadas hummed their one-note song just as they had back home in Florida. She turned to me as we made our way through the darkness and said, "When you're walking at night, do you ever get creeped out, and even though it's silly and embarrassing, you just want to run home?" It seemed totally too secret and personal to admit to a stranger, but I told her, yeah. For a moment, she was quiet. Then she grabbed my hand, whispered, "Run, run, run, run," and took off, pulling me behind her. So that's a chapter, a brief chapter from Looking for Alaska. The one thing I want to say about cigarettes, in the context of the larger thing that I'm saying, is that I think books are very good at helping us think about what to think about. I think that they're very bad at modeling behavior, or like telling us how to act, right? Like, I like Twilight, which I don't know if you say you've read them. You would probably, there are some dudes here who probably haven't read them. Twilight, there are these books about this vampire named Edward Cullen and this girl named Bella. I like Twilight. I really do. I don't read Twilight and want to, you know, like date a vampire who drives an Aston Martin. Because books are not in the business of modeling behavior or teaching us how to act. Books are in the business of teaching us what to think about. And from that perspective, the smoking in the novel, I think, changes dramatically, because the characters in the book who smoke are clearly aggressively self-destructive, and they are seeking out ways to find socially acceptable ways to hurt themselves, which is something that a lot of teenagers go through, and I know I went through. There's this thing that's inside of you that you can't quell, that you just want to destroy yourself. You just want to implode. You just want to find a way to like get at the pain. And I think that for teenagers of my generation who knew that smoking was the stupidest, like most expensive, just stupid, lame thing that you could do, the only reason to do it was because you were engaging that self-destructive impulse. You were trying to find a way. Now that's obviously what's happening with the smoking in the novel. And I think that when you think of books as a way of getting to what to think about, instead of as a way of like learning like what to do on a Tuesday, I think that you get a lot more out of the reading experience. And I also think that they totally don't work for like what to do on a Tuesday. Like if I read a book that's like about a boy who like shouldn't buy a gun, but then he buys a gun and then he shoots off his foot, I don't really think it affects my chances of buying a gun, which are admittedly very low. But like, even if they weren't low, I don't think that it would affect my chances of buying a gun, because that's not what books are in the business of doing. We have lots of great voices for that kind of behavior modeling. So that was the last thing I was going to say, and now I will take your many fascinating questions. Yes, hi.
Hi.
Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too. It's about guns.
Awesome.
Do you think guns increase world suck?
Do I think guns increase world suck? I might sidestep that question. I mean, probably on the whole, geez, it's hard to make an overall argument for guns given like World War I and the like 37 million people who died there. Hard to argue against 37 million dead people. That's all I'll say. They were bad in World War I, that's for sure. Yes?
How different is it when you're writing the screenplays for your novel versus writing a novel? And do you ever go back and look when you're reading your novels like, oh, I really wish I would have been different here? And then
Good question.
Change it?
The questions are, do I ever wish I'd go back and change something in my books when I reread them? And is it different to write a screenplay than writing a book? The first question is, I don't reread them, so that solves that problem. Because when I do reread them, I hate them. And why hate something when you could just be ignorant of it? It's not actually in line with my belief system, but I make an exception for my own books. Plus, like, I want to read other people's books. But I had to go back and read Paper Towns because I'm writing a screenplay of it. Paper Towns was optioned by for the movies by the people who made the very good Ellen Page movie Juno. And so I'm writing a script for that now. I don't know how to answer that question honestly, but also answer it politically. So that's what I'm struggling with. Same thing I struggled with your question. You guys should ask me questions that I can answer in front of the internet in an honest, forthright way, but I don't have the moral courage. It's different. I'll tell you why it's different. It's different because like not even one line of the Paper Towns book exists in the Paper Towns screenplay. So like I've gone and written a radically different thing. And it's also different because I don't know how to write a screenplay. And I don't know how to write a book either, but I know more about how to write a book because I've read like thousands of books, and I've only read like 9 screenplays, and I get kind of bored when I read them, even though they're short. Yes? Yes?
Given what you said about books, how would you change formal schooling?
Given what I said about books, how would I change formal schooling? Well, like, to be honest, if I ran a high school English class, I think that it would be pretty miserable for the students in the high school English class because it would be all lecture and we would read like a book a week and it would be like 300 pages of reading a day, and if they didn't do their work, I would spank them. So like that's a good reason why I'm not a teacher. And there are certainly people who know a lot more about education than I do. I think it's helpful. I've seen it work. I saw it work in my own life. And so the only thing I can talk about really is my own experience because I don't know much about education theory. I've seen it work in my own life to read contemporary novels alongside classic novels. You know, for Kurt Vonnegut or John Irving. I don't even like John Irving that much. Sorry if you're watching, bud. But like to read the Toni Morrison alongside Gatsby and Faulkner and Shakespeare. Because I was, in high school, I wasn't that good of a student, and I was really overwhelmed by the classics. You know, I was really overwhelmed by the prospect of reading The Mayor of Casterbridge. But for me, at least, contemporary novels were a way into that. Yes?
Can I have a hug?
Well, can I have a hug is the question. No. I know. I have a good reason, though, and it involves swine flu, and I will tell you about it in a while, and you'll be impressed by the quality of my reason. Yes? Yes?
Okay, this is kind of a silly question.
That's okay.
When you first found out that Paige Railstone actually made it onto 20 questions,
Yeah.
what was your first reaction?
Okay, so I have to explain something to answer your question. The question is about DJ Paige Railstone, America's greatest DJ. So I had this idea that we should, it wasn't actually my idea. Paige Harwood, a nerd fighter, had this idea that we should make up a person, and then we should make that person real by virtue of all of us believing in that person. Like the idea being that like that like most of your mattering as a human being is wrapped up in the fact that other people are aware